Okay, I'm back, and we are currently exploding on our way down to the surface of Lathe. And it was night there on that side, so I couldn't tell where the land was. Not that there's much land on Lathe anyway. So I'm coming down over the ocean, which is all right. It's still technically a landing, although the rules for the actual official speedrun are a bit uh, inconclusively worded. So my landing on Lathe, my water landing on Lathe, might actually invalidate the run because I didn't technically land on Lathe. And oh no, my lander's tipping over. So I take off and try and get back to orbit right away, even though I didn't actually swim on Lathe. So I realized that, and I quick load, and I'm like, wait a second, I have a save, I can try this, so I can try and get into the water. And it tipped over, except I can actually get back in. And then I just those landing legs, which I didn't need at all, and then sort of porpoise out of the water like that, and now I'm on my way to orbit. I think I explained the lander earlier, and I think I was looking at something else for a few seconds, and I ended up going about 10 times higher than I need to rendezvous with the ship, and I don't have that much fuel left, so I get into the orbit that I can get in, and then get the intercept that I can, which is actually fairly well placed, given the fact that I went into the entirely wrong orbit. So I get the intercept down to a very small area, and for the rest of my fuel, getting really close. Sorry about the yawns, it's like 9:20 here, and I haven't gotten a good sleep in a while, so I used the EVA jetpack to complete the rest of the rendezvous. And Valentina's back in the pod. So next up, we are going to go to Tylo. Tylo. And so I'm just setting up a maneuver that will get me in a reasonable orbit. So, and now I'm doing that maneuver. Now you'll notice that off-center reaction wheel stack there. That was A, partially to balance out the lathe lander, B, to actually, provide torque for canceling out the lathe lander. But now it's just, dead weight. I don't need it there, and it's a little bit off center, but they make up for it. The reaction wheel torque makes up for the fact that there's a mismatch between the centers of thrust and mass. So it's all right. So we're approaching Tylo, and I think the trajectory got a bit off there, so I'm just adjusting it so I come in lower. So now we're getting into orbit here. Actually a while back I did some tests. If you start from a really low orbit, which I'm not going to go to an extremely low orbit, but if you start from an extremely low orbit, you can actually make a Tylo lander that, including the EVA jetpack, will weigh less than 2 tons, which is a massive improvement over classical Tylo landers, which weigh a lot usually. This one is fairly light, but I also want to have margin. So I'm EVAing over to the Tylo lander, and I'm warping to the dark side so I can land on the light side. Now, one annoying thing about Tylo is that the time warp altitudes, in my opinion, are way too high. Like, I think after, like, 30, like it said, after 30 kilometers you can't time warp other than the physics warp. That's worse than Gilly. That's saying a lot. On Gilly, yes, there are tall mountains, so that's why you can't time warp there. But yes, anyway, boosters have been jettisoned, and I decided to load a quick save because I burned at the wrong time. Tylo is a tricky thing because you have to get the suicide burn pretty much perfect. And I've enabled fuel crossfeed on the decouplers to land right, and I don't land right. I just face plant on Tylo, and I click load, and I face plant again. So Valentina's been stranded 3 times. Valentina's been stranded a 4th time. Valentina's been stranded a 5th time. Except I exploded the engine on the bottom, but it'll still work because I have 2 engines. So she hasn't really been stranded a 4th time. The thing is, I'm barely able to get back into the command seat because I forgot a ladder, and I thought it was going to be short enough. And it was, but only just. So I'm using the remaining 2 engines after I blew up the central one to get back to orbit, and then the final stage starts spinning for no reason. Actually, it was because SAS was disabled for some reason. Anyway, so I'm descent's going fairly well, and it looks like I'm gonna have a little bit of fuel left over. But then again, I don't remember much of this mission. I'm again watching this for the first time. The only part of this mission that I've actually watched before making the commentary is the first part. So I've got a close intercept, and I'm switching to the other ship so I can time warp better, because it's, you know, the orbit's weird. And eventually I just say, yeah, I'm just going to go with the tracking station. I can time warp however much I want there. So I time warp to the approximate time of the intercept. And then I'm there, except I'm a bit too late, so I do the retro burn right there. And I get close in, and then I EVA back over, and I just abandon the lander, which is fine. I mean, I'm not going to use it again. I mean, I could use it to Val, but I'd have to refuel it slightly. It's probably worth it in the long run, but I'm not going to for this particular run. I might do it for a future run if I do a future one. So next up, I'm going to go to Pol, or Pol, or however you prefer to pronounce it. I've been saying that a lot. There's a lot of terms in planets and moons in Kerbal Space Program that can be pronounced differently. That reminds me, back in the very early days of Kerbal Space Program, you could find people calling Kerbin Kerbin, and you could find people calling Kerbin Kurth for Kerbal Earth. That was a long time ago. I didn't play Kerbal Space Program back then. I bought it, I think April in 2013, which is about when .19 came out with the rover wheels and the re-entry effects, except I had an absolutely terrible computer. It could run Kerbal Space Program at like 1 to 2 frames per second with a 4-part chip, and the graphics processor or whatever. There wasn't a dedicated graphics card on there. So when the re-entry effects were rendered, it just was like, nope, I can't do this. It's too strong, and turned the entire ship hot pink. Eventually, a few years like 1 to 2 years later, we got a slightly newer computer, which could run Kerbal Space Program like at 1/5 of real time, which was a massive improvement. So I built a few space stations on there, and then when I finally, my dad got a new laptop, and I played KSP on that for a while. That was amazing. Like at the time, I could actually see the green timer, and oh hey, look, we got to Pol while I was talking about that, and EVA landing because Valentina is a boss. Spiky yellow mini planet thing. Spiky, according to the flag. Anyway, so I go back up really quickly with Valentina. And then for Christmas 2017, I got this new CyberPower PC, which is, it might not be amazing by gaming computer standards, but it's amazing for me. It can run a Kerbal Space Program very well. Like, you can see the green timer for this mission, and this was like a 240-ish part launch. And I've been able to, I'll tell you in a minute, but I have to go back to the mission now. As you can see, I'm running very low on EVA fuel, so I'm quick loading multiple times to try and actually get in. It doesn't help that the ship is oriented north-south, or up and down for the hatches, so that means that it's harder to grab onto them. So, I have like 0.3 units, and I keep time warping past the ship, so I've stranded Valentina several times just in this little time span. Almost as much as Bob already, and now I just hit the ship, and now I'm trying to go back. I'm not sure if it'll work. That's 0.04 units, 3, 2... Come on, I should have grabbed that. I was literally right there. Valentina could have grabbed that. Anyone else? Like, and then I ran out of fuel. So, and then I try and turn the ship so she can catch it, except it's not letting me control it because the probe core is out of communications range. So anyway, this time I'm coming in a bit more efficiently. I'm aiming for the top hatch, 0.4, and grabbing board. So yeah, successful mission. One of the first tests I did when I got this computer is I took a... I'm sorry, I haven't ever finished. I started a solid rocket booster grand tour attempt, and I never finished it. I still plan to at some point, but it's going to be a long time, if ever. So anyway, I took that, like, 500 part refueling stack that I sent to Eve, and I aero captured it at Eve at 4 times time acceleration with the recording app running and got no lag, so... And then, of course, I load it up on graphics mod, so I get some lag then. Yeah. So anyway, so the next planet we're going to is Bop, which is taking a bit long to rendezvous at a few orbits of Jool. But eventually I get a close-in encounter. I mean, it takes forever to turn the ship, so it's hard to get it super close. Anyway, time warping, I get to Bop. And instead of doing an... And then I get into an orbit with the intent to do an EVA landing, but then I realize, why waste the time doing that? EVA rendezvous are hard. So I just, I have a bunch of extra fuel, so what I do is I just land the entire mothership on Bop. Like, it's a super low gravity world, so it shouldn't matter that much. I'll probably do the same thing in my next attempt, if I do a next attempt, like for both moons. And then I hit the ground too fast and explode, killing Val. Val and Bob are just having bad luck with this. And this time, though, I've landed successfully, so I get Val out and plant a flag and take a screenshot. Leaning Tower of the Kraken. And then Bing. I think I wrote Bing because I got a Discord notification right at that point. Yeah, but no, don't Bing. Google's way better than Bing. Don't really. I don't use Bing. And yeah. So at this point, the only moon I have left to go to is Val. So I think I try. At first, Tyler was getting in the way of me getting to Val, so I eventually get a Val intercept, or at least lowering my orbit to the altitude of its orbit, and avoiding Tyler in the process. Yep, I get an encounter with Val. So I'm getting close in, and I'm doing another course correction, mostly involving a plane change, and not putting the ship on a collision course. That'd be bad. That reminds me, once I was doing a mission to Sarnus in the Outer Planets mod, and I was landing on the moon Slate, and I time warped into the sphere of influence too fast, and it actually jumped my trajectory, so I was on a collision course, so I had to burn like at the last minute to avoid the surface. So anyway, so Val is taking the lander down to Val, and Val is going to land on Val. So is Val on Val or is Val on Val? You know, maybe one of them short for Val. Yeah, I don't know. So Val is ascending to the surface of Val. Yeah, it's going to be a valiant effort. We should name the lander Valiant, and then so Val's ascending to Val, and then Val, and Val is on Val now. So. And then Val is now stabbing Val with a pole and plants a flag on Val saying Val on Val, or is Val on Val? So then Val reluctantly has to leave Val on the lander, which he has christened the Valiant. I can't keep this up any longer. Oh boy. You know, there's plenty of valves on the lander, I'd guess. Anyway, so Val is now orbiting Val. You can. I'm sort of glad that Jeb wasn't back. Anyway, so we're just approaching the 5-hour mark of this speed run, and the record was about 8 hours and 6 minutes. So I'm trying to dock the lander back to the mothership, and it's just not working very well. Like, I bounce off multiple times. I'm usually better at docking than this, but it's a rather... Yeah, I'm using the junior port, so it's a bit hard to dock, and I'm just flipping around and around, and I can't get it. Finally, I do, and then I realize I literally don't need the lander for anything else, and I was just gonna jettison it anyway. So why not just undock? At this point, I realized that my list of transfer windows, I don't have an ELU window because I took too long with all the other planets, so we'll have to eyeball it. And I also realized I have a ton of fuel left in this ship. So I try and, because I docked the lander, I try and get an encounter with ELU. And it doesn't end up working, unfortunately. And if it did, it would have taken forever, and I decided it was just going to be easier to go back to Kerbin. So, so I make the maneuver to go back to the near vicinity of Kerbin, and by chance I actually get a very close intercept with Kerbin, which is great because I actually had ran out of transfer windows for Jool to Kerbin that I had written down. So note to self, next time, write down more transfer windows. So, and that's me doing the burn. Well, actually, it's Val doing the burn, and I'm also getting rid of the lander because I don't actually need it. So I shoot the jets with Val in it, and then I get Val back into the mothership. Val is leaving the Valiant and also leaving the system with Val in it. Val is leaving Val. Actually, she's already left most of Val, but she's a little sample of Val in the ship. Yeah, Val has a piece of Val. You know, if you repeat the same joke multiple times, it's funny for a bit, and then it gets less funny, and then it gets funny again. So it's sort of like a weird wave graph, this kind that you use in that you learn in high school and then never use for the rest of your life. So then I get the encounter fairly close, and I leave the fine tuning for later. I think, do I? I should. And then bye Val, hi Val. And then I leave Jool's Sphere of Influence. Now, the ELU window, while I was time warping at some point, I figured out an ELU window. So, or maybe it was the Eve window. I don't know. I forget. Did I go to Eve first or ELU first? Anyway, so sometime in there, I extrapolated out an ELU window. Because, they were an average of 1 year and 20 days apart. So I got the approximate day of the window, and I decided I'd send it to ELU on that day. So at this point, either I'm doing that during this time warp, or I'm using the bathroom again, I guess. Maybe, at this point, I think it was getting close to dinner. And, at one point I had a bowl of Chex Mix that I was, munching on, that I had asked for an hour earlier, but no one got it, and eventually someone got it. So, I'm doing the final course correction, to, get on an intercept trajectory with Kerbin. And I'm time warping, and I'm getting there. So now, at this point, I'm going pretty fast, about 4 kilometers per second, but that's not going to be the highest speed I enter at in this mission. Anyway, so Val is re-entering, and I try and aim for that little lake there just for fun, but it doesn't work, so there's a nice shot of the Mun there, and I cut one of the parachutes to save descent time. And I land and promptly tip over. So that's 5 hours and 15 minutes in. We've gone to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of the 14 bodies. There's just ELU, Eve, and Gilly left for the next 2 hours and 45 minutes until the record deadline. So next up, I think I designed the ELU ship. Yeah, which I do by modifying the Dres ship. I think I had I don't do many changes, I think I might have re-added the probe core, and I add some more boosters to the first stage. And maybe some struts in there. So, at this point, I time warp to the window. Time warping! My voice is so annoying, especially when I'm randomly screaming and the time warp's over, so I can't make more of a joke out of that. And I flip, because this rocket is spaghetti. A lot of rockets are spaghetti, and I run out of thrust again, so I enable crossfield on 2 of the engines, and then decouple the other 2. And it's shaking. I don't put fairings on any of these, really. I think I put the fairings on the early rockets, but none of the late rockets. I would have, but, that's a bit of extra mass to be carrying on the nuclear stage. I could put it below the nuclear stage, but then it would just end up a huge fairing and cause more drag than it would prevent, probably. And, sometimes it's easier to brute force it than to make it actually aerodynamic. So then the ELU window, since I'm guesstimating this, I have to fiddle around for a long time. And long story short, I'm like 100 days early. So I had time warp in the tracking station for that long, and then I needed time warp some more, and then I accidentally go back a long time ago because of the magic of quick saves, and I don't know when each one's from. So to save you from staring at all of the maneuver node fiddling, you can probably skip ahead to 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes in the video. What can I talk about? Hey Sarah, what should I talk about?
How you waste your time.
Well, I waste my time. You know, sometimes I wake up in the morning with, I should write a mission report, or like a part of Project Intrepid, or a part of, you know, Voyage the Final Warning. Or maybe I should write a news story, or finish that stop motion video for the song that I wrote in January. Or maybe work on Solid Rocket Booster Grand Tour, or play some more Project Intrepid, or actually do an outdoor project, or launch some model rocket to go to the park, or maybe get a life. But nope, I spent all my time on the Kerbal Space Program forums, constantly like refreshing it, constantly refreshing Reddit, constantly looking at Discord, doing basically nothing, maybe playing some Minecraft, and more recently I've been practicing my trombone, which isn't a waste of my time. So most of my summers have already just been pathetically sitting around and doing nothing, like nothing productive. I'll refresh YouTube one more time and watch one more YouTube video, and then it'll be like 10 o'clock at night. And I haven't done anything productive all day. More and more of my days are ending like that. So, like, also I realize that there's probably very few people still watching at this point. You've probably either gotten bored of my voice, hate my humor, have put on your own playlist and viewed the video, or have just skipped past this part. So if you are still watching, thank you. And, like, can you post a motivational thing in the comments to make me look, like, not, to make me, use my days more productively. And that goes for you too, viewer. So, if anyone is still watching this, please post a comment to let me know, because there's probably very few people still watching at this point.
I'd still be watching.
You'd still be watching a 2-hour video.
Yeah.
Well, you know, yeah. At least it's not real time. You know, I would have tried to stream this, but my internet is terrible for streaming, and it's also terrible for actually uploading videos. Like, I tried to stream once, and it uploaded like 2 frames that have a 2-minute video. So maybe I can take my PC over to someone's house. That'll work out very well. Who has better internet, and then stream an attempt from there once. Like, maybe if I can find a friend who has good enough internet to stream. And again, I don't want to say anyone's names out loud.
Ah!
Sarah.
That's the person's name.
Yeah. Okay. Well, everyone knows you. Well, you know, you're already on the channel, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm still working on trying to get an encounter with Elu. This has probably been like, what, 5-10 minutes in-game. Anyway, so back to trombone stuff. I'm going to Europe for trombone. Oh, except as soon as I start talking about that, except I'm loading the quick loads again. Okay, so I can talk about it. So, I'm used to playing like 3 songs for concert, and after you play trombone for a while, especially the high notes, you cannot hit the high notes very well. So, I'm used to playing like 3 songs, and after 3 songs, I'm done. After a while, I got slightly better. And for Europe, though, we got assigned 10 songs. So, that's going to be an adventure to build up my lip muscles enough to actually play it enough. Oh, look, I finally got a good Elu encounter. So I'm going to burn that. Now, I made a playlist of all the Europe songs, and I found out that right now I can play through 5 of them. Which I could probably do 6 if the 5th one wasn't very high all the time. And then, like, when I finally think I'm getting the hang of the thing, is I add an 11th song, which isn't that big of a deal, but it's still pretty hard. And, you know, we're also doing 76 trombones, which is fun. We have a fun part-ish. It's a fun but difficult part of fast 8th notes. But somebody put the beginning part in the key of C, which, you know, is pretty bad for a trombone, because you got to have B naturals all the way out in 7th, and B naturals in 4th, which you know, it's not, I'm not used to it. Let's see, I've got the music folder right here, and we're also playing Battle Hymn of the Republic, but that is also in a really weird key. It starts at normal in B flat, and then it goes to 6 flats, which I think is like, what, G flat, I think? And then it goes to the key of D, which is 2 sharps, which is another thing that the trombones don't usually play. So, yeah, it'll be an adventure. We leave for Europe in 3 weeks, so I have 3 weeks to learn it. I'm trying to play a bit every day, although I only played half of the songs today because I've been voicing over this all the time. And I also had a band lesson today. So now, the thing is on its way to Elu, but but I'm also nearing the last transfer window for Eve. So yeah. So I have to run both of the missions at the same time. So this is me building the Eve lander. This is easier because I actually have a picture of it that I was viewing on my sister's computer. This is like the only lander I actually tested before time. So I'm rebuilding it from the picture with a few changes. The top stage is just a spark and a donut tank with a pod. The stage below that is an FLT 200 and LV 909, and then meanwhile I realized I forgot to unlock ladders. So I quickly unlock ladders and go back. The bottom stage is like a Jumbo 64 plus a 16 tank, which they retextured. I'm not sure. I like the old textures better because I'm used to them, but the new textures look alright, but I'm just not used to them. And with 2 vectors. Now, I'm using interstage nodes on the fairings, which is a cool trick, so I can like sort of levitate the decouplers for the heat shields above and below the craft. So that like it's easier to jettison them. Because if you've tried to jettison heat shields on Eve, you'll find it's pretty difficult. So the landing legs are just girders, and I put a pod on the bottom so I don't have to do an elaborate ladder system. And then I've got parachutes, which I think, at this point I stick some fins on. It's good to have them. In the test I had the Delta Deluxe swinglets, but I changed them out for AVR8s for extra controllability. And I also have I also stuck some canards on the top at a bad attempt at giving the lander some cross-range capability so that I can pick my landing site a little bit better. So I have mostly everything done, but I accidentally undid the ladder system on the pod, so I quickly rebuild that and get the ladder flush. And now the next part is trying to build the launch vehicle, which I didn't test. And then I also have to build a ghillie lander to attach to this. So mostly right now I'm just messing with the staging, making sure everything goes the way it should. This EU-lander staging is no small task. At this point I'm testing to make sure the vectors don't blow up the fairing when I set them off, and they don't, so I revert after I killed Valentina again. Yeah. So now I put the entire thing in a huge fairing, which might come back to bite me later. And I add struts everywhere, which actually does come back to bite me later, which I'll explain later when it happens. So at this point, it's all launch vehicle related stuff. I think I quickly leave to go to do something really quickly. So maybe it was getting the phone. So actually no, I was using the Delta V calculator on Sarah's computer to get some Delta V stats for this upper stage. But that's the only thing I really use it for. So I determined that 2 tanks is a good number, and then I build a huge launch vehicle for it, which involves, I think I had I do some spitballing, and the core stage is a mammoth. But instead of using mammoths on the outer core, I think I actually, give me a moment. I use vectors, clusters of 6 vectors, which is, they give better thrust-to-weight ratio for the sides, which is important on this one. And then I don't asparagus this stage it, but I onion stage it. And then I attach some more struts to everything. And then add solar panels to that stage, because that stage is basically my transfer stage, because I don't have solar panels or anything on the lander to save mass, so, next up, I go back to my Jool ship, and then this little return pod here I'm going to save as a sub-assembly. Oh, the video is over. That's a great spot to do that at, so, I'm like, why is the video frozen? Anyway, so, thanks for watching. The next episode is the last episode. See you in a few seconds if you're going to continue watching. Bye!